Welcome to those who are joining us. Bear with me whilst I admit everybody in. We had about 50 or so people register, so we've only got 18 currently. So I'm going to wait a little bit longer before we begin. Lovely to see some new names on our list of attendees. Hope you enjoy the EPP webinar. If you're new to us, it's a wonderful program. It helps events. We support events in the city, so we're very fortunate to be able to get involved with so many great events. Doesn't look like there's many people attending or trying to join, so we might kick off, and I might just be a little bit slow in case more people like to attend. So my name is Lisa Mirabella, and I'm the Senior Partnerships Account Manager for the EPP team, the Events Partnership Program. And it's a pleasure to have you all joining here today. I've also got Lisa McCarthy, so another Lisa to my right. She's actually our boss, and she's the manager of the Event Partnership Program, so partnership team. So I think I'll kick us off to begin with. She's going to take over and run us through some information with our guidelines and just some general tips with when you're applying for funding and what we'd like to try and see. And then I'm going to talk you through the Smarty Grants application form. So Smarty Grants is the program we use to apply for this funding. And then we're going to have some questions at the end. So if you've got questions, please pop them in the chat and we might answer them as we go. But if we don't, we'll be sure to answer them at the end. If they're very specific event questions, we might take it offline and have a meeting or phone call with you after the webinar. So if it's a generic question that probably will help other event partners or organisers, please feel free to pop it in the chat. Okay, I'll pass it over to Lisa McCarthy.
Thank you, Lisa Mirabella. All events that are supported through the Event Partnership Program will be held on Wurundjeri, Woiwurrung and Bunurong Boonwurrung land. And I'd like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we're attending the webinar today. The City of Melbourne respectfully acknowledges the traditional owners of the land we govern, the Wurundjeri, Woiwurrung and Bunurong Boonwurrung peoples of the Kulin Nation, and pays respect to their elders past and present. We acknowledge and honour the unbroken spiritual, cultural and political connection they have maintained to this unique place for more than 2,000 generations. We accept the invitation in the Uluru Statement from the Heart and are committed to walking together to build a better future. If you haven't done so already, I'd encourage you to visit our Aboriginal Melbourne webpage on our website, which has additional information on all of the wonderful Aboriginal cultural aspects of our beautiful city. Some of you may not know that last year was an election year for our council. So an election was held in October with new councillors being notified in November. With that process, we had 6 existing councillors return and 5 new councillors join the ranks here at City of Melbourne. They are on a 4-year term until 2028. So our previous Deputy Lord Mayor is now our actual Lord Mayor, which is Lord Mayor Nicholas Rees. And the Deputy Lord Mayor, Rashina Campbell, is also a returning councillor. As I said, we had 5 new councillors, which is Councillor Raphael Camillo, Councillor Owen Guest, Councillor Gladys Liu, Councillor Andrew Rouse, and Councillor Mark Scott all join the council this year as well. Councillor Mark Scott is actually the portfolio manager for tourism and events, so we have quite a lot to do with Councillor Scott. And in saying that, all of the councillors love getting around our EPP events. They really see the importance of the program and it's highly valued by all councillors. I'm just going to touch on our guidelines. I think in our previous webinars, we've really kind of dissected the guidelines, but they are available for you to view on our webpage. So I'm just going to pull out some of the kind of snapshots of highlights of things that you should really focus on this year. As noted, the guidelines are available on our website. We can also email you a copy if you prefer, but please take time to read these thoroughly and familiarise yourself with the guidelines, particularly the eligibility criteria. So to be eligible to apply for the event partnership program, your event needs to be completely free or have significant free programming with a minimum of 5,000 attendees to the free programming. The event needs to start between the 1st of January and the 31st of December in 2026. And the event organiser has to demonstrate that a minimum 30% of expenses can be covered by the event or other income streams. The sponsorship we offer through EPP can be cash or in kind or a combination of both. In kind fees refer to waiving site hire fees only for public open space. So if you're looking to hold your event in a parkland that's managed by City of Melbourne, be it Birrong Ma, Alexandra Gardens or down at Docklands, you can actually apply to have those site fees waived as part of the sponsorship. The total combination of cash and in kind is what would then determine the tier that you are put into or your partnership tier. I won't go into too much detail with the partnership tiers, but please consider these when you're applying, especially noting the attendance expectation for each tier and how that aligns with your total funding request. It's really important to upload a budget showing all revenue and expenses and calling out how council funds will be allocated for your event. The preference is that council funding is spent on free programming elements, marketing, PR, rather than core operational costs. Essentially, we'd like to see that the event would go ahead without funding, but our funds are really helping enhance the event and making it accessible for people who potentially wouldn't be able to attend that event otherwise. Council funds cannot be used to pay for accommodation, travel, food and beverage costs, prizes or prize money, wages or staffing costs, including security. But if you do have any questions about these at the time of your application, you can reach out to one of the team for further information. Any event utilising public open space, as mentioned earlier, will require an event permit. You can reach out to our event operations team for further detail around how to apply for the permit. This will need to be done in conjunction with the application for funding from EPP to ensure that the space is available for you for next year. Many events that happen within the city may require a POPE permit, which is a place of public entertainment permit. Our building control group or BCG team are best to speak to determine if your event will need a POPE. There's a lot of different factors that come into play for a POPE permit and different things that trigger that. So really important to reach out to them to see if this will be a requirement for your event. There is a cost associated with a POPE permit, and unfortunately that's not something that can be waived through the EPP partnership. Our event operations team are also running a major event EOI for public open space, which is completely separate to EPP funding. It's not a funding opportunity. It's an opportunity for events to actually lock in that space that they want for a longer period of time. Previously, events were only able to book space a year out, but now have the option to book that space for up to 3 years. Again, our event operations team are best placed to answer questions in this area, and we're more than happy to connect you with them should you have questions about this. The timeline for the event partnership program, essentially our applications open on the 5th of May and will be open for 4 weeks. I strongly encourage you not to leave it until the last day to submit your application, but we are used to getting about 90% of applications through on that final day, but allow yourself enough time to make sure you've got all of the information that you need, you've had a read through, you're happy with everything before submitting. We then go through a rigorous assessment process through the months of June and July, where the applications are assessed at a number of different levels throughout council, with the final recommendations landing with our councillors at the end of August. We take these to a council meeting on the last Tuesday of August, and then the councillors have the final say on our recommendations that are put forward. Once that's happened, all applicants will be advised in early September whether they were successful or not, and you will be provided with some feedback if you were not successful in your application. I'll now pass back to Lisa Mirabella, who will go through all things Smarty Grants.
So Smarty Grants is a wonderful program where most councils and funding organisations use this program to build in their application form, their assessment form, the post-event report templates. It's a little bit chunky at times, and as we've got the opportunity to essentially, we design the application form in accordance to the council goals and the program. So all of the questions that are asked in the application form are essential to our assessment forms, which flows through to essentially who gets recommended to the councillors in September. When we send out the emails to apply or on our website, it will take you to this. I'm going to use a little marker. I hope you can see it. Great. So this, you'll be logging in if you've already done an application with us before, or another council you may have applied for funding. You can just use your existing details, otherwise you'll need to register. So this is a free program for you to register with. You do not need to pay to use it. And once you've registered, you won't need to keep registering. You can continue using it. You'll use this login if you're successful to essentially account manage the partnership. Currently, the slide on the right, that event partnership program, start a submission little icon you can see. Currently, that's not available to you all. This is what it will look like on the 5th of May. Currently, you can only preview the form if you've already performed being the application form. If you've already done so, that's great. You'll be familiar with it. If not, I've pulled out a few important aspects of the application form, which tend to get a little bit tricky with the answers we get. Sometimes people don't quite understand what we're asking for. So I just wanted to further explain why we're asking it and essentially what we're looking for, because there's only so much we can do with Smarty Grants. And it's essentially like fill in your details here, and there's not much. You can upload proposals and things like that, but we want you guys to know exactly how to fill in the best application possible. So once you go through so this is what the application form will look like. Once you go through our eligibility criteria for the first few pages, it brings you to the most important part, is essentially your event details. And there's lots of areas for you to fill in, right from a brief description of your event, which we essentially capture that information, and perhaps we might tweak it slightly. That's the version we send to the councillors for them to get a snapshot of, this is the event, this is what they're producing, and this is how many people will be attending, this is when it's happening, this is where it's happening. And then later on in the application form, there's a section that says free programming. And it's your opportunity to describe in detail all of the wonderful aspects of your event. So don't be put off by the size of that box. If you need to, it will expand as you type. I recommend that you give us as much information as possible. Don't feel that you're limited here. I think if you can try and describe, as you can imagine, we might have 30 or 40 applications we're going through. So it does help us get a bit of an idea of an event when we get some really great information, details about what's happening, the timings of it, how long performers will be performing for, the type of performers. So please give us, it's difficult when there's an event a year or a year and a half away, but the ideal scenario of your event would essentially go into this box. Also, we've got a lot of information about a total attendance. So Maka mentioned earlier, the EPP program only sponsors or partners with events that have a minimum of 5,000 to the free component of your event. So if you're a ticketed event, but there is an element of your event that is free, you'll need to demonstrate that there are at least 5,000 people attending. So whether it be that the space is big enough to hold 5,000 people or more, or it's over multiple days and you've got a database that will exceed 5,000, this is the information that we're looking for. Unfortunately, there are many other grant programs within the City of Melbourne, but this particular program is for events from 5,000 onwards. So I would say maybe a medium-sized event, which is really fantastic because it drives the most visitation to the city, helping businesses and driving some really great vibes in the city, which is essentially why we exist. So another section I wanted to pull out was this finance section, where you request funding, but also demonstrate essentially how much your event will cost you to your knowledge, so event expenditure. And you'll need to demonstrate, how much you're requesting, what you'll be spending it on. And also you'll need, we calculate this on our end as well, but as Maka mentioned, if you request more than 70%, so the reliance is too high on EPP, the event is deemed ineligible. As Maka mentioned earlier, the program exists to help enhance existing events, not necessarily completely pay for them all. So that's something to bear in mind when you're writing your application. How can this money enhance my existing event through programming, through marketing, through PR? So this is where you'll be giving us as much information as possible. I'm just having a little squiz what else I want to talk to you about. I think that was really the main part of that section. The application form is about 8 or 9 pages. It's quite long and it's quite detailed in certain areas. We ask for marketing, sort of bit of a marketing strategy report. We ask for business engagement opportunities that your event will be able to incorporate as part of the event, also community engagement pieces. Our biggest advice is making sure that they are quality over quantity. So we love to see some really unique but genuine relationships built with local businesses rather than just a blanket, I'll be letting the businesses know. So whether you can have some particular events that are close by to the event, produce a drink that might link up with your event or something that there's a nice little connection there. That's sort of what we're looking for when we ask for business engagement. I wanted to give you a snapshot of this current year we're in, so 2025, which we received applications last year for this current calendar year. So last year we had a budget of $2.5 million. We haven't had approval as yet for next year's 2026 budget. So we don't know if that will decrease or not. We've been told it certainly won't increase. 2.5 million does sound like a lot, but we have 10 multi-year events currently, so it does reduce significantly, and you'll be surprised how quickly that money is spent. So it's important to give us as much information as possible, knowing that it's a very competitive application form. So we had 87 apply, over $6 million was requested, 1.5 million in the in-kind, so that's the permitting fees. And ultimately there was 43 events were approved with 7 ineligible. So it's a really tough decision for us to make, but essentially we look for the return on investment to the councils, who aligns best with the council objectives as well. So that's all listed in our guidelines. So please familiarise yourself with that and note that when you're writing your application and how it can incorporate with your event. As Maggie mentioned, we've opened on the 5th of May. A great application form doesn't appear on the day, so please begin before the 30th of May, because there's quite a few documents that need to be uploaded, like a budget and other bits and pieces. So, and this takes time. If you have any issues with Smarty Grants or uploading the documents you need, please reach out to the team. Sometimes people can submit accidentally before the 30th of May. We're able to reopen it so you can upload the information you need. So we're always here to help you. Part of always being here to help you, we've got a couple of consultations happening next Thursday and the following Thursday. As a team, we've set aside half a day to talk to as many people as possible. Obviously, if you want to contact us after the 8th of May, of course, we're here anytime, but we wanted to have some dedicated time that we spend with our applicants. The email address is on the web page that you can see, or the webinar page, but I'm sure everybody's seen it if you've been on our website. I haven't had any questions come through the chat, so if you had any questions, please feel free to type them in, or perhaps you can email us directly. It's completely up to you. But that comes to the end of our webinar. It's been really great to have. We've got 30 people attend, and we love new events as part of EPP. We do have a hand. I don't know if you're able to speak. I don't know if you. Okay, hang on a minute. Give me a minute. Oop. This happened. I'm just trying to unmute you. Bear with me. Here we go. All right, you should be able to unmute yourself. Bear with us, everybody.
Thank you very much, Lisa. And Lisa, I did send a question in the Q&A. All I was asking, could you send a pack with the guidelines and also any details for Smarty Grants that I need? Yeah, I've never registered, so this is my first attempt.
First time. Yeah. What we might do is, for the attendees that have dialed in, we'll have a list of your emails and we can send you all the presentation and the links to Smarty Grants and the guidelines on our website. So
beautiful. Thank you so much.
No worries. Was there anybody else that had any other questions? Okay, I've got Marky Mark. Great name, Marky Mark. Wages being ineligible. Does this mean performers' wages cannot be? No. So wages are referring to the event organizer. So the event's happening anyway, and we want the event organizer's wages essentially covered already. And we want EPP money used on performers, used on bands and entertainment and things that will enhance the event, bringing people in. So I hope that's clarified there, Marky Mark. I've got Ashley. I'm going to unmute you, Ashley. Give me a minute. You might just need to unmute yourself as well. Oh, sorry, I can't hear you, Ashley.
Yeah,
how you doing?
Hi, wonderful. Thank you for this. You'd mentioned, so I have 2 possible events. One is established, done. We've already run it twice. I have a new concept as well. I know you'd mentioned established events. Is that a deal breaker? Like if we've never done it before?
No, definitely not.
Okay.
Definitely not. We sponsor or support new events all the time. So if it's a great idea and it's going to attract a certain amount of people into the city, and you've been able to establish that you've ran successful events to the size required of EPP, then you're definitely eligible to apply for sure.
Fabulous. Thank you so much.
No worries. We've got a question with travel expenses. Does that include travel expenses for performers. So that's not ineligible. That's eligible.
Yeah, like
Okay.
yeah, any travel or accommodation.
Okay, so for travel for performers, if you're bringing someone from overseas or anything like that, that's not, those tickets are not able, the airfare tickets are not covered through EPP. So is an event permit always required? Our event is at Fed Square. Fed Square is not part of the City of Melbourne permitted space. So if Fed Square is a private space, you'll need to contact them directly. So you do not need a permit for that location.
Yeah, we wouldn't cover anything like visa fees, travel, accommodation, airfares, any of that. We would pay the performance fee for the artist as part of the programming, but anything else, council funds cannot be used for.
Jessica, bear with me, Jessica.
I think that's it.
Oh, it's there. I'm not sure if you needed to still speak, Jess, but you should be able to unmute yourself.
Oh yeah, thank you.
That's okay.
Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, I can.
Awesome. Sorry, I wasn't able to post in the chat. There was a little Q&A box, but my question was just around when you spoke about connecting with local businesses and adding them to our application. Do you recommend having those conversations already with the local business, or just putting in like our intention or our idea on which businesses we would connect with and what we would aim to do?
I think intentions is fine, Jessica. I mean, if you've had the conversations with the businesses and you can say we've spoken to X, Y, and Z and, you know, we're going to collaborate in this way, that's amazing. But if not, it's more just like we will connect with, you know, the businesses near us and look to come up with specific packages or menu options, or they may have the ability to have a stall on site, those kind of things. We can also connect you with the business precinct groups in those areas as well. So either before or after, and then they've got some really great connections into the businesses in those specific areas as well.
Okay, and then do you recommend if we were to connect with the precinct groups that we would do that before we submit, or is that something that if we were to be successful, then that's when those conversations would start?
Yeah, my personal recommendation would be if the event going ahead is dependent on funding from council, like if you're going to run the event regardless whether you get funding or not, have those conversations whenever. But if you're waiting on the result of funding to determine if you go ahead, I would probably hold off on those conversations, just because the precinct groups can get super excited, understandably, for their partners and local businesses. But it's probably, you know, we can then give you the right contact details as well if you don't have those once we start working together.
Okay, thanks. That's helpful.
All right, we've got a couple more questions. So what letters of support from a quality versus quantity perspective would you recommend? Okay, it's a really great question. I suppose if we had recommendations or letters of support from previous events that you've ran, and whether they be from the performers that you dealt with, to some local businesses that you engage with, to if it was held in another council, perhaps they can provide a letter of support. I think in that scenario, provide what you have. It's not the be all and end all. If you don't have a letter of support, you're absolutely eligible without it. So it just essentially helps us gauge the capacity of the organisers to run an event. That's why we like to sort of, if there's more information for us to read, great, but it's not a requirement. Marky Mark, what have you said? You've said, I guess, all this activity in Melbourne. I have commented previously with organisers. Would you suggest to re-engage directly with them? Perhaps Marky Mark, we can have a chat offline. There's no right or wrong way about writing your application form. So if you wanted to re-engage, great. If you need some assistance even if you're not an EPP partner, we're always able to help events happening within the city engage with local precinct groups. So please yell out to us or shoot us an email and we can connect you.
In response to that, Mark, though, I guess we don't work with Tourism Vic or any of those bodies in regards to this program specifically. So, you know, they're not involved in our recommendations at all. But if you wanted to, you know, have some conversations with them and include that detail in your application, absolutely. But they're dealt with sort of at different levels of the organisation, but they don't really have a direct line into the program, if that makes sense.
Daryl, if your letter of support is from City of Melbourne, please supply it. That's great. There's no right or wrong way.
If it, Daryl, just in saying that, Daryl, if it was funded through City of Melbourne, we would find that feedback during our due diligence because we cross-check with all of the other funding programs within City of Melbourne as well. But if it was an event that was purely held in City of Melbourne without funding and you wanted to get a letter of support from the event operations team, if they would write such a letter, then you're more than welcome to reach out to them and see if that's something that they would provide.
Okay, well, if there are no other questions, this webinar will be available on our website. So we're going to upload it onto our website. So if you've got friends that want to read it or watch it, please send them onto our website. Hopefully by early next week, it's live.
There's just one more question.
We've got a question, yeah.
I was going to say there's one for Daryl, from Daryl as well. So the consultation times is it's a 15-minute chat for yourself with two members of our team just to run through everything. We can't look at the draft application for you. We're not allowed to view them and we actually can't see them until they're submitted anyway. But more to answer any questions you may still have lingering about eligibility or, you know, the best way to put your application forward, what sort of things you can focus on. So definitely really worthwhile just to have a bit more of an in-depth chat one-on-one before you start that application.
Hi, sorry to interrupt. I'm trying to chat, but it won't let me. I do have one more question.
Ashley.
That's
ready? Fine.
Oh, okay, great. So I think I know you'd said that, you know, every council has, you know, those like their goals and what they're doing, but do you have any insight on where you guys are more leaning towards, whether it's because I have both, we're very, very local set of events, but I have one that's quite international in scope and more understanding like the goals of this program, where is it more to support local, not saying that you wouldn't do both, but do you know what I'm saying? Like when we look at who's being granted and what that looks like, maybe some insight if you can, is that possible at all?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, I think it might be worth, if you've got a few ideas floating around, actually booking one of the consultations with us as well. And then we can kind of deep dive into those for you. But I mean, look, the council objectives, we're actually in the process of rewriting our council plan because our current council plan expires in June of this year, but the program's still based on the objectives of the existing council plan. So, you know, obviously we don't like to talk about the C word of COVID anymore, but there's still obviously a rebuild of the city happening from that. So things with, you know, great attendance numbers and that will have a really good, strong economic impact on the city are highly regarded, but that's not the be all and end all of the program. You know, the council objectives like sustainability and waste, diversity, equity and inclusion is a really big one at the moment, community engagement, business engagement. So events that can, you know, show that they're really strong in certain areas. It doesn't have to be strong in all of those areas, if that makes sense.
No, that's perfect. And I actually do have an appointment with you guys on May 8th. So yeah, I guess we can dive deeper into that, but thank you very much. Sorry, I wish I could chat. It just won't, just so you know, like it won't let me.
It's strange.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, everybody. Well, thank you so much for attending. I hope everybody has a really great long weekend. It's Anzac Day tomorrow, so nice and early for the dawn service. Please yell out to us. There's a really great team at the City of Melbourne. They've actually all logged on today, so thank you, EPP team. There's Jess, Jeremy, Kat, Amy, who's returning from maternity leave. Who else is on there? Becky, of course, can't forget Bex. So I'm looking at everybody's faces. So thank you so much, and please feel free to contact us at any time. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.